Hey there, what's up guys? It's Mia from Mia Makes It, and I'm here to show you how to bind a book at home. So bookbinding is a very traditional art. Like a lot of religious texts were very intricately bound by hand before obviously the invention of the printing press. And it is a craft, and I don't want to discount that, but I will say today that our intention is to make something that is low cost, accessible, and without all of the fancy bells and whistles that would come with a normal bookbinding project. Typically, you would use something called a bone folder to help you fold your pages, to make it nice and precise, just as an example. But today we're going to be using none of that. We're going to be using things that you can find around your house. So I'm going to go ahead and use this camera to show you my materials. Some of the things that you will need are some paper. I have black and white paper. You can use whatever paper you want. At least 16 pages. Some decorative paper for the cover of your book. Some cardboard. This could be a literal cardboard from a box, or if you have a sketchbook or any kind of like craft book that has the backing that looks like this, you can use that. Some stickers, anything you want to decorate, some binder clips, thread, a needle, an embroidery needle, scissors. Another thing you will want is just a regular thumbtack. So that's all the materials you'll need to start your own book. So now that we have our materials, I'm going to show you one of the first things that you should do with your pages. So you can choose you can choose colorful paper, you can choose cardstock, regular copy paper. I like to put like a black sheet of paper throughout my books because I use my books as sketchbooks, and I think it's fun to like draw with a like white ink pen or like a white colored pencil, just to make my brain think a little differently. So I'm gonna have those throughout. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make our signatures. A signature is a stack of papers that will make up the pages of your book. So for me, I typically use 4 sheets of paper. You can do 3, but more than 2, less than 5. So I'm going to take the stack of 4 sheets of paper, and I'm going to go ahead and fold them in half. And you'll want to make sure they're straight, they don't have to be perfect, because again, this isn't necessarily about having the perfect book, it's just about learning how to make one. So this is a signature. You can do as many as you want. I'm going to use 4. And you'll want to make sure that your cardboard pieces I mentioned earlier are going to be the size of your signatures. You'll want them to be a little bigger around the edges. So this paper is, when it's folded, it's 5.5 by 8.5. But I accidentally cut my pieces of cardboard to be that exact size, which is okay. But just for my own future reference and for yours, you'll just want to make sure there's like a tiny bit of space of like wiggle room. It's not completely necessary, it just is better for protecting the actual pages of the book. We're gonna stack up all of our signatures, and then we're gonna go ahead and start decorating our book cover and our book back. Here's the 4 signatures. I'm going to go ahead and use my binder clips to hold them together. This will kind of help later on when we actually go to bind the book together. Whew, it's a little tough. Okay, so have these. As you can tell, it's not perfect, but that's okay. It's just going to be a sketchbook for me anyway. It's not like something I'm trying to sell or make look super good. I just want something I can throw in my backpack and then take out whenever I would like to sketch. So I'll go ahead and move you guys closer. So for my book, I don't have any decorative paper right now. I usually do, but I do have these beautiful Turkish designs wrapping papers, but I'm just going to use it as my book cover design. So I'm going to go ahead and put my cardboard on top of the paper, and I want to make sure that I have enough room all around because we're kind of going to wrap this like a present. So we don't need a whole lot of room, but definitely we want to give ourselves like a good, what is that, like a ½ inch or something around the border. One thing I forgot to put in the materials is craft glue, so I'll make sure to add that to the materials list at the beginning of the video. But I'm just using this regular like tacky glue, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use a glob to just put all down the back of this cardboard. And then what you'll want to do is snip off the corners. You don't want to cut right to this corner. You want to give it a little bit of room for when you fold. And then we're gonna put a little bit of glue along the edges, and then we're going to fold them down. So go ahead and do that. So you're just gonna go ahead and paint the glue, and then we're gonna go ahead and basically fold the edges over. Now we want to go in with more decorative paper and cut like a rectangle to cover this area of our bookboard. You can use the same paper that you used for the cover, but I usually like to mix and match what the inside and outside looks like. Again, I don't have like a lot of decorative paper like I usually do, so I'm just going to use this black paper for the inside. And I usually just kind of eyeball where I'm gonna cut it. So I'm gonna just make a couple of marks for myself so that I know where to cut. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and glue these on. Alright, and now while that's drying, I'm gonna go ahead and throw on some of these stickers to cover up these gross lumps that came up from the glue. My hands are all covered in dried glue, but we're gonna try. My partner Jackson gave me this sticker, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it on here. I love it so much. very haphazard, but here are my front and back covers. So this is gonna be my front and this will be my back. So it'll be just like that. And now we're about to get into the harder part, which is adding these signatures into here and making our book. So first thing we're gonna do is make holes in our front and back covers. And the way that we're gonna do that is by kind of seeing where our middle is. So, you know, our middle's right here. And then we're gonna make 3 holes up here and 3 holes down here. So, I'm not going to measure precisely, but I'm gonna kind of give myself an eyeball view. And it looks like we kind of want to make holes that are evenly spread apart. And so I'm going to go ahead and measure by inch, starting from the top. And I'm going to poke a hole with using my tack where it says 1 inch. I'm not gonna go all the way through, just kind of make a hole, a little hole where I can see. At the 2 inch and then at the 3 inch marker. Then I'll go up from the bottoms, do the same thing. 1 inch, 2 inch, and 3 inch. Now what I'm gonna do is find those holes that I made, the guides, where I didn't poke all the way through. I'm gonna go ahead and poke all the way through now. We have 6 holes on our cover. So now we're gonna take our front cover or back cover, depending on which one you put the holes through. And you'll wanna just, where you made the holes, you're just going to kind of poke right through again so that you make a hole through the other cover. So now I'm making holes through my front cover. So now I have a total of 6 holes in my front and back cover. So there's holes along this edge of the back cover and holes along this edge of the front cover, so that once our book is bound, it will be opening like that. Now, to mark our signatures. So we're gonna go ahead and put our signatures stacked on top of each other inside of our book. And then I'm just going to line them up. And I'm going to grab a pencil, and where I see a hole on the top of my cover, I'm going to make a light pencil mark along the edge of my signatures like that, just like that. So there's a hole here, and I went ahead and marked where the signature lines up with the hole. There's a hole here. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing, line it up with the hole. There's a hole here. Gonna go ahead and do a nice pencil mark along the signatures. So now the pencil mark is going to align with the holes in my front and back cover. So I'm gonna do that with every single hole that I've made. So 6 in total. And so now I have a guide on my signatures on where I'm going to poke holes. So go ahead and take my front cover off for now. And then the same thing we did with the front and back covers. I took one signature out, and as you can see, there's little pencil marks that I made. And I'm gonna go ahead and open up the signature. I'm gonna take my thumbtack and I'm gonna go ahead and poke a hole right where I made those marks. And it will be along the spine of your signature. These are going to be the holes that we are going to sew into to make the pages, to bind the pages to our front and back cover. And you're just going to use that tack, and again you're going to just poke the tack all the way through your signature. So now I have 6 holes in my signature. And I'm going to do that for every single one. Alright, so once you are done poking the holes through all of your signatures, they should all line up relatively well. Now I'm going to stack these up again, and we will be ready to sew. Alright, so now that we're ready to bind our book, we're going to be using a coptic stitch method to bind our book together. And first thing you want to do is take your thread. You can just use regular cotton thread, or if you want more protection, you can buy a thread that is waxed. But I've always used just a regular cotton thread. It's never come unbound before or anything like that, so I just continue to use this regular cotton thread. And then I like to measure out about 4 times the length of the book. I'll do 5 times for good measure. And then I'm going to go ahead and snip it. And then I will thread the thread through my needle. And then I'm just going to leave a little bit of thread on that side, and at the end of the other side, on the long side of the string, I'm going to go ahead and tie a simple knot just by making a loop and putting the end through the loop and pulling to make a knot. And I'll do that 2 times for good measure. Alright, so the way we're going to start is we need our front cover and our first signature. So the first place we start is from one of the holes, either the top or the bottom hole in your first signature, and you're going to go ahead and push your needle through, and you want to pull all the way until that knot that we made is flush against your signature, just like that. Now that our needle is on the outside of the signature, we are going to go ahead and start sewing our front cover onto our signature. So the way that we're going to do this is by looking at our front cover head on and going through the top or bottom hole depending on where you started. But you're going to go in through the front of the cover, not the underneath part. So we're going to go ahead and pull. And you want to make sure to pull all of that thread on through just like that. Now you'll see here that you have a little loop. So as you can see, my thread is on this side of the loop, not this side. So you're gonna wanna take your needle and push it through the opposite side of where your piece of thread is coming from. And basically what this is gonna do is make a little knot, basically tying the signature to our front cover. And you want to make sure that you pull nice and tight on this thread, and you'll want to make sure you keep pulling on your thread nice and tight throughout the whole process so that your book is nice and tightly bound together. Okay, and once you have that knot, you're going to push your needle back into the hole that we came from and pull. Just like that. And you want to make sure to, again, pull nice and tight to make sure it's flush against your book. So now we're gonna move on to the next hole, and we're basically gonna do the same thing. Poke your needle through your second hole. And this is arguably one of the hardest parts because your book is going to be kind of flopping around the whole time because it's not bound to anything yet. But once we have this first signature tied together to our front cover, it'll become a lot easier. Okay, so now that we have our thread all the way through our second hole, we're going to go take our needle and push our needle through the second hole of our front cover and pull all the way through. And you want to be careful during this whole entire process to keep an eye on your thread so that it doesn't bunch up and knot just like that. So again, as you can see, since I'm pulling my needle towards me, the thread is coming out from this side of the loop, not this side. So since my thread's coming out this way, I'm going to take my needle and go to the opposite side of where my thread's coming from, push my needle through the loop, just like that, and then pull our thread all the way through, and it creates that knot, and then go ahead and pull nice and tight. Now back through our signature. And now we're pushing our needle back through the second hole of our signature. And again, just making sure we don't get a knot. And again, want to make sure that's nice and tight. Now I'm gonna go to our third hole of our signature. And make sure it's pulled nice and tight. And then we're going to take our needle, poke it through the cover. Make sure to pull all the way. And you pull nice and tight. Bring our thread and our needle. Sorry, I wanted to zoom out so you could see more. Now that I've already got a couple of detail shots, so we're gonna go ahead and bring our thread around, pull nice and tight, bring our needle to the back of the little loop we made. Pull it through to make the little knot that we talked about earlier. Pull tight and bring the needle back through the signature. And we'll continue this process for the last 3 holes. And remember to pull tight after every single thing you do with your needle. After every hole you put your needle through and you have to pull the thread, make sure you pull that thread nice and tight. You don't want all of your stitches to be uneven, where some are loose and some are really tight. You want to try to remember throughout the process to pull tight whenever you pull your needle through a hole. All right, so now we've gotten to the part where we would normally go back inside of our signature and continue, but since we're at the last dot, now it's time to jump down to the next signature. So take your second signature, open her up to the middle where you have the holes, and you're going to just take your needle and go down to that hole and poke your needle through, and you're going to just pull all the way so that it's connected like so. And open up your second signature and take your needle, skip over to the second hole, like so, and pull your thread, and remember to pull nice and tightly. So the way that we're going to connect these, since we didn't make a loop here like we did before, we just have our thread sticking out, we're going to go back up and basically create a chain that connects the two signatures together. Just like that, and then back into the signature. So if you didn't catch that, that's okay. I'll do it again. And remember, pull tight every single time. So again, we're gonna go to the hole in our signature, the next hole in our signature. Pull. And using this previous loop that we created, we're gonna go through that again. Now sometimes it's kind of hard since we created a tight loop, so I usually will just stick my needle in between the first signature and the cover, open up the cover, take the needle, and then loop it from the inside. So it's coming up through this way. I'll go ahead and pull it all the way through. And we're going to skip over this loop and then back down. And then we'll go right back into our second signature. And we'll continue this process throughout the whole way until we get to our back cover. All right, now that we're at the end of our second signature, instead of going back into our hole, we'll go ahead and jump to the hole in our next signature, in our third signature. So I'm going to go ahead and stick my needle in to that first hole of our third signature and continue the process. Now this time, we're going to be going in between our first and second signature here. So I'm gonna go ahead and sandwich my needle right there. Open up, take my needle, and I have a stitch right here. My thread is coming out of this side of the stitch. So I'm gonna jump over to this side of the stitch and basically again create kind of a chain link that connects the signatures together, just like that. And back into the hole of our signature. Okay, so for this last part, our last signature, we're going to sew the signature with the back cover of our book. And again, we're not going to go back inside this hole like we normally would. We're going to go ahead and kind of keeping everything in order how it should be, with the back cover here, the last signature that we haven't sewn together yet here, and then our book so far that we have sewed together. We're going to kind of keep those things in order just like that. And we're going to take our needle and drop down to the back cover to the last hole right here. So I'm going to put my needle through there. So going from the bottom up like this, and go ahead, pull, pull, pull. And you want to make sure your thread stays in line, and this piece of the thread is like not over to the side like this. You want to make sure it's like that. See, when I tried to pull it, it did it. So you're going to go ahead and pull all together, pull it nice and tight. And then we're going to take our needle, put it in between the second and the third signature right here. I'm just gonna wedge my needle in just like that. Open up my book between the second and third signature, grab my needle, bring it around so that it creates that chain link. Once again, pull it nice and tight, just like that. And you want to kind of make sure everything is nice and lined up. Pull, and then we're gonna go back inside the hole of that last signature, which is kind of hard to see right now, but there we have it. And you're gonna go ahead and pull, pull, pull. So we're gonna continue that process all the way down in through the hole of our signature. Making sure to pull nice and tight. Lifting up the book to the back cover so that I can poke my needle through. Create that chain link and back into our signature. You're gonna go through that last hole of your signature once more. Pull your thread, make it tight. And you're gonna take your needle. You're gonna go ahead and put it underneath that stitch. Pull, pull, pull. You'll have a loop. You're gonna take your needle, go behind the loop and through it, and pull it. And that'll make a nice, easy knot. I'll do it 2 times. Go underneath the stitch with your needle. You're gonna pull the thread and needle towards you. You're gonna create a loop like this. You're gonna take your needle, go behind the loop, and through it, and pull. And pull. There you have it. Now you have a beautifully stitched together book that you made with your own 2 hands. And now you can use it for whatever you want. It can be a journal, it can be for writing, it can be a sketchbook. I personally use mine as a sketchbook. And that's my tutorial. I'm pretty happy with how this came out. I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you can create a wonderful little book for yourself. The reason I began binding my own books was because I used to buy sketchbooks and journals all the time, even when I didn't need them. Like, I'd be halfway through one and then start a new one because I saw one at like Ross or something and it was only $2. So I've started binding my own by hand to kind of hold me accountable to finishing it, since these take a few hours to make. And it's just fun to give it your own personalized touch, and it's something that's going to be completely unique to you. You can also make them for people. They can make great gifts, very thoughtful gifts as well. And when you use the methods I used, it's very cheap to make. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a comment or like it or share it with a friend. And if you feel oh so inclined, I will be dropping my Venmo and Cash App below if you'd like to make a small donation if you found this video helpful. I am a full-time artist, and I also teach art workshops at a donation-based price point most of the time. So if you feel that you would like to contribute to me teaching this to you, if you feel like you got something out of it, I would really appreciate a little donation. But if not, that's okay too. And yeah, I hope you have fun making your own book. And if you would like, please tag me on Instagram if you decide to post your creation. My @ is @MiaMakes_it. MiaMakes_it. And I'll have everything down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.